Feature Friday, all my quilting friends. It's so great to have you guys here in my sewing studio with me. I appreciate y'all being here for another Friday. Today we are doing something pretty simple. I've got a little quilt that needs to go out as a gift, so we are just going to do an edge-to-edge design. So this may be something you know how to do. Everybody does it a little bit differently, so maybe I'll give you an idea on how to do something a little different than the way you've been doing it. But we also have a lot of new Butler owners out there, so this may be their first time learning how to do this. So let's go ahead and turn around and look at our robotic system and the little quilt that I've got here so we can get started. So the little quilt here on the frame that I've got looks similar to one that you've seen me custom quilt. I made them both at the same time. That one had a fox in the center and this one has a little bear. The quilt's about 42 by 45, so this shouldn't take long to do an edge to edge on, which is great because I don't have a lot of time. On this screen here, you can see that I have an orange box set up, and that is my safe area that I set when I turned my robotic system on. Some people will fill in their safe area when they're doing an edge-to-edge design, and there is nothing wrong with that. If you've got the space and you can quilt on your safe area, then you go right ahead. I'm actually going to set a layout box and use my quilt top as my layout box instead of using all of my safe area. I don't have a lot of extra hair in my safe area, but I did bring my safe area out to the edge of my backing. So I'm gonna do my layout top and just bring it just about 1/4 of an inch outside my quilt top. So let's do that now. I am in layout, and I'm going to come over to the right hand side of my display and hit the plus sign to add a layout box. And it says set the first point of that pattern box. So I am going to move my machine to the top left hand corner of my quilt top. And for me to set my layout box, I like to be about 1/4 of an inch above the top of my quilt and about 1/4 of an inch over from the side. So I'm just hovering outside that top corner. And I am going to hit my plus sign. I'm then going to look at my instructions, and it says to set the next point of my pattern box. I'm going to do this as a 2-point pattern box, so I'm going to bring my robotic system down to the bottom right hand corner, and when I do that, you can see it is drawing a purple line across my display screen showing me where I am. Now I am all the way down at the front edge of my frame space, so I'm going to back off just a little bit here. And once again, I am about 1/4 of an inch outside of my quilt top. That's how I like to set my layout boxes for edge to edge. You may do something completely different, and that is okay. Quilting is all about how you feel comfortable doing something. I'm going to go ahead and hit my check mark here. And now I have my pattern layout box. So that is my big orange box here. Next, we are going to fill this in with our design. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my pattern. I'm going to highlight pattern here on the left-hand side. And I did choose something that I would like to use. So I've got this little edge-to-edge design that has swirls and pearls. I'm going to go ahead and hit that and make sure it's highlighted orange, and then hit my green check mark to add it to my space. We're going to have to do a little bit of work because obviously I'm going to need a couple more repeats to fill that, and it's a little bit bigger than my pattern layout box. So this is a large design, which is okay because that will quilt out quickly when I am on a deadline. That's always helpful. So let's go ahead and fill up our box and do our manipulation of our pattern. When we add a pattern, it automatically goes to edit, assuming that we've got some work to do. So edit is highlighted here on the left-hand side of our display. And I am going to come over to the right-hand side of our display and choose my top feature, which is my repeat feature. When I highlight that, I get all of my repeat functions, and I need a few more of these to fill out my box space. So I'm going to come over to my horizontal repeat and give myself 3 total repeats. Now this goes outside of my pattern box, and that's okay. We will work with that when we go to our scale feature next. So that looks okay. So I'm going to come over here and come down to my scale feature. I'm going to highlight scale, and now I have all of my scaling options. Now for me, I want to make sure that my swirls and my bubbles stay proportional the way they are. So I've got my little proportion lock highlighted. If you've got that available on the robotic system you've purchased, you can highlight this and that will scale your design both width and height-wise proportionally, keeping it true to the intention of how the designer made the design in the first place. If you don't have that, it might make for instance, your little bubbles here might get a little bit more oval shaped than circular shaped. So you just have to watch your designs if you don't have this available. But I have this available, so I've got it highlighted orange. And then I'm going to hit my smart scale right here. And when I do that, it has taken my 3 repeats and made them the size that it feels is right for my pattern box. But as you can see, I've got a little blank area up here. So when I smart scaled with that design lock on for proportion, it's made it a little bit smaller than what my layout box is. So I would have a blank space at the top of my quilt if I were to quilt it out like this. I need to move my pattern to the top of my pattern box so that my design starts up a little higher. So I'm going to go to my move feature. That's your second one down over here on the right-hand side. Now I've got all of my little buttons for moving right now, and the easiest one for me to use is to move this to the very top of my box, is to use this button here. This one will move my whole design to the top of my box. So when I hit this button, my design has moved to the top of my layout box, and that's exactly what I want. Now I've got space down here at the bottom, and that's okay because as I move forward with nesting, as I continue row by row, all of that space will fill in. I've just got a pattern that's smaller than my layout box, and I'm okay with that. I just might need a couple more repeats as I go down my quilt. I'm ready to stitch out now, so I'm going to go up to my home screen. I can see my design in my pattern layout box. And I want to come over and hit my needle. So my needle is engaged. Remember, if our needle is not highlighted and you hit your start button and begin the process, it's going to trace over your design, but not actually stitch. So you always want to make sure your needle's highlighted so it stitches if that's what you want to do. I'm going to go ahead and hit my start button. So my little green dot up here. And I get my message from my robotic system telling me what's going to happen. My machine's going to move to the start of my pattern block, and it's going to start the design. And I need to make sure that my needle is in the up position. We never ever want to start with our needle in our fabric or hovering very close to the surface of our fabric because we risk tearing our fabric and our beautiful quilt, and we don't want to do that after we spent all this time working on it. So I'm just double checking, and my needle is up, not in my fabric, so I can hit my green check mark. And my robotics is going to take a second, and it's going to take control of my machine and move all the way over to the left-hand side of my quilt area because that's where my little green dot is. That is the start of this pattern. My crosshairs is kind of moving over. The little blue crosshairs indicates where your needle position is, so that's moved over to the start. My robotic system is telling me to pull up my bobbin thread and then press OK. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Like I said, I'm just outside my quilt top. That way I know I've got everything in case I'm a little crooked with my quilt layout as I'm moving down. I'm going to go ahead and hit my green check mark. And I'm taking some tie-off stitches here, and then my pattern's going to start. I'm going to let that quilt, and then I'll let you see what it looks like when it's done. All right, so there we go. That first row is all stitched out and looking really great. I'm really happy with the design I chose, and I think this is going to look really cute on this quilt top. So just remember, everybody, there's always different ways to quilt a quilt, and sometimes you just have to do what you need to do to get it done, and an edge-to-edge quilt is a great way to take care of that. I don't think there's any right way or wrong way to put in an edge-to-edge design. You can put an edge-to-edge design in your safe area. You can set a layout box like I did. You can choose your pattern and autofill it. You can choose the number of repeats you want. You can scale the pattern how you need to make it have the look that you want. It's really all personal preference, and everybody does it just a little bit different. So take the time and be creative with all of your edge-to-edge work to get the design and the pattern that you like on your little quilts. I will see you guys next week, and we'll go over the nesting process so you can see how I complete this quilt using nesting. Thanks so much, and you'll have a great weekend. See you real soon.